If you inherit gold, it can be a blessing, of course, but only if you know what to do with it. And if you're in the UK, I'm afraid there are punitive death taxes, inheritance tax. And this is a bit of a follow-up from my video the other day where I was talking about the fact that you could lose almost 90% of your investment. I did get my maths wrong a little bit, and I'm going to clarify some of that in this video. It's actually closer to £2,000 you'll get from a £10,000 investment, which still sucks. But it is real, it is true, and this is the maths to back it up, the real maths, the one that I've actually taken a few minutes to actually do properly. So let's talk again about inheritance tax, how to avoid it, how to make sure that your relatives and loved ones don't get unstuck with tax audits and fines and penalties and just losing all of the money that you've worked so hard to save entire lifetimes for. Hello everybody, Backyard Bullion here. Welcome to another precious metal ramble where we have down-to-earth discussions about all things precious and shiny. Today is a bit of a follow-up ramble on the subject of inheritance tax, which I released a video on yesterday. If you haven't seen it, I will put a link in the description box below. But I got some things wrong in there. Not least of all, some of my maths when it comes to the selling of gold at auction. Also, I want to just reiterate a few points that I made in that video that perhaps weren't as clear as they could have been around things like the buyer's fees. A lot of people put in the comments, perhaps they don't quite fully understand this. I think it's pretty simple, but buyer's fees are ultimately paid for by the sellers in that the buyers will pay less for the product because the fees are then added on top of what they bid. So we're going to go through some of the corrections of that video and just reiterate the message, because whilst people think this is a bit of a silly scenario that people might not, why would you sell at auction for bullion gold? It happens all the time. I know a probate solicitor, one of our very, very close friends of the family, and she tells me it happens all the time, not just for gold and silver, but also for all things collectible, antiques, all these kind of things. And ultimately, what you get inherited just gets dwindled down by the system. It's really, really horrible. So if anything, this video is again a video to say, if you inherit a big box of shiny gold, then please make sure that you do some research first and sell it in the right avenue. Don't just go to an auction house and sell it there. Now, first up, I do want to just address this buyer's fee thing because it's pretty integral to the little maths equation that we've got going on here. For those who might be confused about this situation, when you sell at an auction house here in the United Kingdom, most auction houses will have a buyer's fee and a seller's fee. So basically they will charge the buyers a percentage, and the worst that I've seen is around 25%. So this is a worst case scenario. Some are less, some have different levels for both buyers and sellers. So it can vary, but this is a worst case scenario. Now, the premise that the sellers don't pay the buyer's fees is completely wrong. And again, I will say this as a personal experience from just eBay. Now, it's a small percentage, but the buyer's fees that happened on eBay for private sellers were absorbed by the sellers. A market price is a market price, and spot price for gold is spot price for gold. If somebody is putting a 1 ounce gold coin up for auction at one of these auction houses, why would anybody pay spot price for it at auction hammer price and then pay an additional 25% on top? No one would do that. And anyone bidding on that and doing it that way doesn't know what the price of gold is. And so that is then made up for by the fact that the bidder, the buyer, will bid less. So it is absorbed by the seller. It doesn't get directly paid for by the seller to the auction house. That's paid for directly from the buyer. But this example is genuinely real. Now, the other little mistake that I made in the first video, which I will just clarify here before we go through because it makes a bit of a difference, is at the sort of 2/3 point of the video I mentioned about the various inheritance tax thresholds that are in the UK. And if you are an individual unmarried, then you get £325,000 worth of inheritance tax free money and assets to give away to loved ones. You get an additional £175,000 if you're giving away your home, but that's only to your children or grandchildren. So if you're an unmarried with no children individual, you're gonna get shafted because it's only £325,000. And if you've worked all your life, saved all your life, you don't have kids, you've probably not spent as much money as other parents on education, school, clothes, whatever it might be. You're probably gonna own your own home, and that's gonna take up the vast majority of your allowance. So it means that all assets, all like your car, your phone, your computers, clothes, everything is valued. And you can bet your bottom dollar that your coin collection and your gold will as well. I will touch as well on the second part of this video where a lot of people are like, oh, just wouldn't tell the probate man, I wouldn't tell them about it. It's a lost and unfortunate boating accident. Not going to happen, not going to work. You're going to get real trouble in that you will be dead, so it won't be you, but your loved ones will get in trouble. So yeah, lots of silliness going on. So this IHT threshold is a real thing for people who are unmarried without kids. It's going to happen. So if you are leaving £10,000 worth of gold, this is the little math scenario we've got here. So £10,000 worth of gold you're leaving, and let's say the full estate value of your estate is well above the threshold. How it works, as I will reiterate again, this is not formal tax advice, not probate advice, but your gold is valued when you die. So during the deed of probate, whoever's executor of your will and estate will go, well, you've got 4 1-ounce gold coins, they're worth £2,500 each, that's £10,000. They put that in the deed of probate. You then have to pay HMRC a bill of what the entire value of the estate is. But let's just say for this example, that's £4,000. 40% of 10,000 is £4,000. You have to pay HMRC £4,000. Now, if you don't have that £4,000 lying around to inherit that £10,000 worth of gold, then you are forced to sell it. And so then if you sell it at auction because you don't know better and your loved ones are uneducated about what gold is and how to do it, you then have to sell it at the auction. So what happens is the buyers will take the £10,000 worth of gold and they will bid £8,000 in total, because when you factor in the 25% buyer's fees that they've got to pay, it will give you the spot price of gold. So that's, again, reiterating the little argument for all these people in the comments shouting at me going, you're wrong, the buyers don't pay the seller's fees. They do. They pay it by not bidding the full amount. Now, it is less than I said in my original video, and I will admit that I got that maths wrong. So what they'll do is they'll bid £8,000, which means that they spend £10,000 and they buy it for spot price. Fine, great. You then get charged seller's fees of 25% of that price, not the total price there with the buyer's fees on top, but this price here. So you get paid, well, you have to pay £2,000 in fees. So you can see here you've received £8,000, you've had to pay £2,000 in fees, so you get £6,000 in return from your £10,000 worth of sales. You then have to pay your tax bill of £4,000, which leaves you £2,000 of your original £10,000. I hope that clears things up for those who were somewhat ignorant of this quite simple premise in the sort of comment section of my first video. It is how it works, I'm afraid. And my example of eBay, I was selling some Magic the Gathering cards before eBay changed the rules, and I was selling them for about, it was like 3 little packs of booster packs, and they were £15, so basically like £5 a booster pack. When the buyer's fees came in, I didn't then suddenly start selling them for £16, £17 a pack. I had to sell them for £13 a pack, because when you put in the buyer's fees, the £15 was the total price the person would pay. And people just weren't paying more than that. My sales just went off a cliff. It happens. That's how it works. So that's the nuts and bolts of that example. And as I said in the first video, to eliminate this, educate your loved ones, tell them what to do with your gold, and tell them not to sell it at bloody auction houses. Tell them to sell it with bullion dealers who will give them close to spot price, and just educate them basically, or tell them to keep it, but they have to pay that tax bill somehow. So the last point I want to make is the silliness that goes on about I lost all my gold in an unfortunate boating accident. Now look, I don't like paying taxes where I think they're unfair, but at the end of the day, unfortunately, we have to abide by the laws and rules that are in existence. And if you're the executor of a will, whether you're a loved one or whether you've instructed a solicitor to be the executor of the will, especially if you've instructed a solicitor to be the executor of the will, they're not going to break the law. They're not going to ignore the fact that there's a giant coin collection there. And a lot of people might go, well, I'm just not going to put it into my will. Well, unfortunately, there is always going to be a record of these things. And look, possession is 9/10 of the law. If somebody goes through your dead possessions and finds this coin collection, you can bet your bottom dollar it's going to be in that collection. Now, a lot of people also go, well, if you've got a sizable coin collection, you just hide it from the probate man. First up, that's fraud and tax evasion, and you'll get in trouble. Your loved ones will get in trouble. And if then that loved one goes and sells all that gold at some point, you can bet your bottom dollar that the banks and the HMRC will know about that transaction. They will know where that money's come from. And I've said it in one of my previous videos when I was looking at my own kids' inheritance and thinking about what they would do if they just suddenly took 60 grand's worth of sovereigns down to Hatton Garden Metals, cashed it in, and then used that money or tried to use that money to put a deposit down for a house. The whole premise of getting a mortgage is that they will look about the money laundering regulations. They will have to know where that money's come from. They will have to do proof of wealth checks. They will have to have an audit trail of where that money's come from. And if it's not been recorded in your probate, if it's not been recorded in that, then you're going to get your loved ones in trouble. And the last thing I would want as a parent is to be dead and gone and have the grief of that for my kids, and then suddenly they get audited by HMRC, fined, named and shamed for tax evasion because they've done it deliberately, That's not going to happen. That's not the mature thing to do. That's not the right thing to do. Realistically, the best way to hand gold down to your future generations and loved ones is to sell the gold yourself before you die. Now, look, I know we can't all plan when that's going to happen, and God knows it's just so crazy at this moment in time in the world. And I do want to just also put a quick moment in to say, like, my condolences go to Charlie Kirk's family. Like, absolutely, I wouldn't agree with a great deal of what he says and does, but nobody should be murdered for their opinions and political opinions. It's disgusting. We can't plan when we're going to go in this world, but if you can have some modicum of idea of what you're going to do with your gold beforehand, if you get the best price for it, hand the cash down to the future generations, they can make the decisions then of what to do with the cash. And if you've instilled the right mental attitude towards money and savings, then they perhaps will make the right decisions. So it's like the idea, and it is farcical, the idea that you would just be able to hide this in this modern world. And with HMRC and the taxman, the IRS, being just so on it now, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when people get checked up on for this stuff. And it's very, very, it's not right. Like, I don't like it. Everyone's assumed to be a tax dodger and a criminal until they prove themselves innocent at the moment. It really does seem that way. But you know, it sucks, and it really does. And I don't agree at all with the idea of inheritance tax, because we've bought all of this stuff with our already taxed income. So to then have another taxation on top of it at the end of life is just punitive, in my opinion. But that's a political video for another time, I suppose. Unfortunately, I can only see it getting worse with Rachel from Accounts here in the UK, our Chancellor of the Exchequer. She will most likely increase, I don't know, they'll increase the rates or the gifting year thresholds and stuff. But, you know, these coins here, these two coins in particular, are part owned by me and my brother. They are both inherited by our grandfather, two separate grandfathers, one on each side. And they're special, they're amazing. I wouldn't want to part with them, and I would want to keep them if we did keep them when we inherited them. And it's just, there's more to life than just the money, of course, but like, it just sucks. So do bear that in mind. And I hope that clears up a lot of the people in the comments going, yeah, the buyer's fees are not paid for by the sellers. That's why they're called buyer's fees. They are paid for by the seller, just in a de facto way. But I did get my maths wrong, and I did get my threshold the wrong way round for what it was. So yeah, that's, I think, all I want to say on the follow-up side of things for this particular video. That's it from me. We'll see you on the next one. Oh, I do want to just say a huge thank you and shout out to everyone who watched the Cobra live stream with me last night. That was so much fun. We're going to do more of them in time. And a personal thank you to Cobra for all of the hospitality he showed me last night. Super, super fun. And we're going to do it again, I have no doubt. So thank you all. We'll see you on the next video. As always, please make sure that you like, share, comment, and subscribe for more.